Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I am the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County, and this show is about Plymouth County real estate. As the Register of Deeds, we record all documents related to real estate throughout the 27 communities of Plymouth County. And the headline for this month was Sales Volume and Refinance Activity Remains Solid. Our job, as I said, is to record all documents presented at the Registry of Deeds. We then scan those documents as an image so they're available through our internet site. They then create an index so people can find the documents in the future. We then microfilm them so in the event of a disaster, we can recreate the registry. My first document you're going to see come across the screen is a bar chart of deeds, the number of deeds that were recorded for the month of September. Over the last couple months, we've had some pretty good sales activity through the summer. There were 774 deeds recorded in September compared to 915 in August, 12% higher than the 694 deeds in September 2013. Year to date, we're up 2% in terms of sales. Certainly adds to the overall marketplace and the sales volume across Plymouth County. The next bar chart you're going to see is of mortgages. Mortgages are basically the security instrument that gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds relative to people that borrow to buy property. We've had drops in the number of mortgages recorded at the registry. There were 1,493 mortgages recorded in September. We're obviously lower than years before when people started refinancing years ago because of low rates. As soon as the rates went up, a lot of those refinancing stopped. Through 9 months data, we're down 36% year to date. The next screen you're going to see is a bar chart of foreclosure deeds. Foreclosure deeds are very troublesome. Foreclosure deeds are when lenders take back the property from the owner. There were 34 foreclosure deeds in September, less than the 36 in October. Overall, we're down significantly from years before. The next bar chart you're going to see is of foreclosure notices. We've had an uptick in the foreclosure notices recorded across the county. Recently, a lot of lenders are just clearing out their files, and people that haven't made payments in many years are now facing foreclosure. That comes in as a foreclosure notice. You'll also see an image of the foreclosures in orders of notice. All the communities in Plymouth County coming across the screen. The largest number of foreclosure deeds have been traditionally Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham. You'll see that on the chart. Just want to mention our training room is open the first Thursday of the month for anyone that would like to come in and get online training. We're implementing new legislation relative to making it easier for deregistering land. There are two sides of the registry, recorded land and land court, and that will make it easy for people to remove that. Our office hours in the month of October will be in Marion on Thursday, October 23rd from 10 to 12. Recently we received information that Minot Ledge Light, the I Love You light off of Scituate, is being sold from the federal government to a private party. In the next segment of my show, I have Robert McCarthy, who is the outgoing Registrar of Probate. He will be serving until January, when his replacement will be elected in November. He'll be sworn into office. Bob McCarthy is a great guy who'll talk about the role of Registrar of Probate. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Registrar of Deeds of Plymouth County. And I have a great guest on this show, the current Registrar of Probate, Bob McCarthy. Bob, welcome to the show.
Welcome to you, John, and it's a pleasure to be here.
So I know we've done this before in another cable station, but I think it's great information for the public to know. You are retiring as the Registrar of Probate this year. but you've done a tremendous job, and I think it'd be helpful for people to know, first of all, a little of your background, and then we'll talk about the role of the Register of Probate. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your history and how you came to be Register of Probate?
Okay, sure, John. I'm a lifetime resident of Plymouth County, grew up in East Bridgewater, went to school there, then went to the United States Military Academy at West Point, graduated in 1961, had the good fortune to play on the football team there as well as the track team. Later then served in the 82nd Airborne in the United States Army at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, following which I entered Boston College Law School and graduated there in 1967. I then returned to East Bridgewater and served as selectman for a term. I also ran for the House of Representatives and served 2 terms in the House of Representatives representing East Bridgewater and Whitman. And then in 1974, I was elected as state senator for the new district after a redistricting, a district that encompassed 14 towns in Plymouth County and 4 over in Bristol and Norfolk County. So among the towns that I represented at that time were Pembroke, Kingston, Duxbury, and then Plymouth joined the district in 1978. And so I had the good pleasure to serve in the Senate for 6 years in 1980. At that time, I ran for the congressional office, the 10th congressional district held by Margaret Heckler, and was soundly beaten. It was a good experience, and then I returned to the private practice of law, which I did. And then in 2000, a vacancy was created when John Daly decided to retire, and I ran for the vacancy and got elected and to fill a 2-year term, and then have served 2 6-year terms since that time.
In 1980 was the year that Ronald Reagan won just about everywhere, including Massachusetts.
That he did.
Yeah. So the little story that I always like to hear, and you know what it is when you played football in Army, you were number 3 in the country?
We were number 3 in the country in my sophomore year,
Yeah.
and that was at a time when football was different, and Eastern football actually was quite active. Syracuse was number 1 in the country in the year of 1959, and we played Syracuse the following year in Yankee Stadium and beat them 9-6. But it was you had to play 2 ways. There were different substitution rules at that time.
And there were a couple Heisman players for Army and Navy over there?
There were. In my sophomore year, which would have been the season of 1958, Pete Dawkins at Army was the Heisman Award winner. And in 1960, my senior year, Joe Bellino from Navy and Winchester was the Heisman Award winner.
Now, were you there during the Lonely End era?
Yes, I was. I was there when Colonel Blake was the coach, and he started that in 1958. Had a fellow named Bill Carpenter, who was a great athlete, became a major general in the Army in later years, and he was the lonely end. So it meant that he was out to the side, and they never came into the huddle. So the New York press dubbed him as the lonely end, and that stuck.
So a lot of college football history in those years.
There was.
Yeah, that's great.
A great experience.
And certainly your political history is unmatched. You've served in many offices with distinction, and will be retiring from Register of Probate this year to spend more time with your family, and we're going to miss you.
Well, and I will miss it too. I've enjoyed it. It'll be 14 years that I will have served as a Register of Probate in Plymouth County. I've enjoyed working with the people of the county, with the lawyers of the county as well, and we have a wonderful staff at the Plymouth Probate and Family Court. So it's been a great experience, but like other things, it's that time in my life when it's time to move on. My wife wants to have a few years together and spend a little time with the grandchildren and so forth.
Yeah. So why don't you tell the public a little bit about the role and function of the Register of Probate? Certainly people get our jobs confused quite often.
Right.
And it is totally distinct and separate function. Do you want to describe it a little bit?
Certainly, I'll try. The Plymouth Probate and Family Court is part of the Massachusetts trial court system. So there are 14 probate and family courts throughout the state, and we are elected. They have a Register of Probate who is elected in each county as for the county itself, but we're not part of county government. We're part of the Massachusetts trial court system. So the Probate and Family Court deals with important sensitive family matters, and it runs the gamut from deaths of individuals and they're handling their estates. It handles divorces, marriages out of wedlock. We handle domestic violence issues. We do guardianships of minors, of the elderly incapacitated, and we also, I think I may have mentioned adoptions. Adoptions are one of the pleasant things that we are able to deal with. We deal with changes of name. So it's really a wide variety of issues that families are dealing with, very sensitive matters to the individuals that come before the court.
And over your time in office, there have been a lot of technological changes?
They certainly have. When I got elected back in 2000, there were not computers in the trial court. 2 years later, there were computers installed, and we went through a system. And then about 5 years after that, there was a new court system of the computers that came in. It's called Mass Courts, which is a much more sophisticated system. It's being rolled out throughout the entire court system, and the Superior Court is presently going on at the present time. So that should be completed within a year or so, and then all the courts of the Commonwealth will be on the same overall computer system.
And certainly probate matters in many cases can be very sensitive. And how do you see that all laying out with access to records?
There will be some limitation. Well, our records on the balance are open to the public. They are public records. Mm-hmm. We have a court of records, so we have to keep all of the records. As you know, they're utilized when title examiners are checking on a title to check if a piece of property has been owned by people that go through a divorce, or if there's been a death in a family, and so forth. So the records are important, and what we will be finding is right now, they've got some task forces dealing with the issue of access to our records. People can come to the court, they can look at our public computer, and through that, they can then access the file, and they can look at the file. The next step will be to have certain access provided to individuals at either their offices, if they're attorneys, or at their homes. And so they're coming up with the guidelines right now to deal with that, because they were in the estates right now are more accessible, but I think you'll see in the future other matters becoming available to people, and it may require that they be involved at first in the matter. But that will be done carefully, because there are certain sensitive matters that should not be on the public arena.
Yeah, you and I have had these conversations over the years for both of our functions, probate and deeds, that the development of the internet being many years ago, governmental requirements and the public's demands of records through the internet has created a practicable accessibility issue, is the word you used?
Yes, that's correct.
And that relates to, in our case, everything can go available through the internet. But in your case, it should be more limited.
We think so, especially when you're dealing with issues affecting children and so forth. And as you say, people, I think those are called practical obscurity, that it takes someone to come down to the courthouse, ask to look at a file, and as I say, all of our files are public records, except for those that have been impounded by court order. And all adoptions are impounded, and other court cases may be impounded due to particular sensitivity in them. And so that's what I think those that are coming up with the regulations are looking at, is how to protect that, yet at the same time afford adequate public scrutiny of records.
So on November 4th, the people of Plymouth County will elect your successor.
That's correct.
And any things they should be looking at towards the future that you can give them for advice over your 14 years as Register of Probate and decades of public service?
In a general way, just that the job is one in which you deal with the public all the time, and the public, you're dealing with the people who do have a family or a sensitive matter before us, and so our staff has been trained and does an excellent job in dealing with people, being sensitive and compassionate. There's a fine line. We cannot give legal advice from a staffing point of view. We can help people procedurally. If they indicate that they want to do something, we can indicate what avenues are open to them, but we can't provide legal advice as to how specifically to go about it. We're very fortunate in Plymouth County because we've got an active Lawyer of the Day program. We just had, when I started, a lawyer one day in Plymouth, one day in Brockton. Now the Bar Association has really stepped up over about the last 8 to 10 years, and we're able now to have a Lawyer of the Day present in both our Plymouth and Brockton courts on a daily basis for the morning, and they are there to answer questions from any individuals who come. There is no income limit. It's just open to the public. It helps our staff because it allows people to talk with a lawyer to get a sense from them about what the legal issues are and how they should proceed, and it helps our staff then in dealing with the people.
So for a member of the general public that would come down looking for information, particularly people that are way back in time doing genealogy, how do they come in and get access to the records?
If they wish to come back, they can come in and look at our index. Our index, we keep all files in our building from probate files from 1937 to the present, and that is because, as you know, title examiners have to go back 50 years to check on a title, and then the last transaction prior to that. So in most instances, the files are on our site. For files before 1937, about 40 years are stored at some trial court facilities, and then from 1685 to 1880, the Mass Archives in Boston have all of our files.
Really in Bill Galvin's building
yes,
in Dorchester?
in the State Archives,
Right.
and they have a trial court section of it.
Sure, wow. And what about prior to 1685? Are those in the colonial records?
Prior to 1685, they are the colonial records, and they are kept in the Plymouth County Commissioner's office.
Right. And we're actually building a vault at the registry.
Yeah, that's
To
good.
house those temperature controlled, humidity controlled.
Right.
Yeah, great.
And that was one of the reasons that they were interested, long before I came on board, but in removing the files from our Plymouth building because there just weren't any temperature controls, and to get that 200 years of vital history in our area, but for the state as a whole, and getting that into a protected environment.
So that would be an interesting question looking back at the colonial records. How did they recognize divorce at that time? You know?
Right. Well, it followed the English common law, how that initially, and then provisions were made to set that forward. And initially, Superior Court was able to do it, and so forth.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, both of us, that we've been so involved in Plymouth County's history and the colony's history in our jobs.
Well, yes, and I think you particularly deserve credit for what you have done with regard to the history of land transactions and land itself throughout the county. You've done a great job, and I know it's appreciated by genealogists and people who are looking for some historical records.
Who are the people that you report to in your job? And your relationship with the judges is what I should say.
As an elected official, I answer to the public at large.
Yes.
I work with the judges of our court, and we have a first judge, who's now Judge Edward Boyle, and we have 4 associate judges who work within the county. So I work with all of them. I also work with the Chief Justice of the Probate and Family Court, Angela Ordonez, and prior to that it was Paula Carey, who is now the Chief Justice of the whole Office of the Trial Court of Massachusetts. So Judge Ordonez sets the overall policy for all the probate and family courts, how to handle things and what rules govern. And so in that sense, I deal with her, and I deal with our judges in administering the Plymouth Probate and Family Court.
So unlike the district court, more similar to the Superior Court, you have 2 locations?
We do have 2 locations. We have the one in Plymouth, which is a new courthouse that was opened in 2007, and then we also have the Brockton Court, which was opened in 2000. So I came on board after that had been open about 6 to 8 months, and but we're very fortunate in Plymouth County to have 2 facilities like that house the courts that serve the county as a whole, the probate and Superior, as well as then the district courts of Brockton, Plymouth, and the housing court that covers a wider area, and the juvenile court that covers a wider area.
So when we were first elected in 2000, both you and I, we were in Plymouth, we were sharing a building on Russell Street.
We sure did, and that I'm delighted that we originally Your your office, the Register of Deeds, was making arrangements to move. We were not part of the original plans, the Probate and Family Court, for the new Plymouth Trial Court. And when Governor Romney came on board and the plans were being made and the funding being provided for that courthouse, he sent down Chief Justice Mulligan and Eric Criss, who was his Secretary of Administration and Finance, to take a look at our court as well as Worcester and Taunton. And they were shocked to kind of find out that we weren't going to be part of the court here in Plymouth, and the only court, and we would have been left receiving our heat from the pipes underneath the road there on Russell Street from the old county building that was going to be abandoned and all. Make a long story short, Governor Romney said to take a look at it, and Chief Justice Mulligan and Eric Criss put things together, and they asked us to provide our space needs. We did. We had meetings, and it was just fascinating to see how quickly, when someone wants to get something done, they can get it done. And we got put into the new courthouse, where they went up one level in the front part of the building, went down one level, took no space from anything else that had been done, kept the same footprint, and we were fortunate enough to get into the building.
Yeah, and that was quite a transition.
It sure was.
Yeah. Good. Well, you've done a tremendous job. I thank you for appearing on the show, and you've always been great at sharing information to the general public, and I wish you well in your remaining months of your tenure.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John, and it's been a pleasure, and I was pleased to be able to initiate a website that provided information to the public throughout our term, and it's been well received by attorneys as well as by the general public.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hey everybody! Heart disease affects 1 in every 3 women in America, but you can fight back. There's no time to lose. Mothers, sisters, daughters, families, and friends, it's time to shout louder, stand stronger, and demand change. Let's go!
To the Batmobile. Dang it.
To the invisible jet!
Dang it.
Together, we can put an end to heart disease. It's time to go red for women. I could use your help. Yeah! Learn more from the American Heart Association at www.goredforwomen.org.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley, the Registry of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Bob McCarthy for joining our show. Bob is not running for office again, so he will be replaced, and a new person will be sworn in January, but he did a great job describing the role of the Register of Probate. In this segment of the show, we always try to do something a little lighter in nature, and normally we do it around the holiday of the month. Columbus Day. I've worn my Lee Iacocca Columbus Day pin when Lee Iacocca renovated the Statue of Liberty. And we've done stories in the past about Rocky Marciano, who lived in Brockton, the Garibaldi Club in Plymouth, Dominic DiMaggio, who was a famous Red Sox player, lived in Marion. However, we've added a new display at the Registry of Deeds, a replacement of the settlements of Plymouth County. And Kingston is the new settlement of Plymouth County in the display. We're having an open house to show off that display on Wednesday, November 5th from 4:30 to 6:30, highlighting the display case, some of the memorabilia from Kingston, and some of their notable land records. So what you're going to see coming across the screen now are some images of some of those famous locations in Plymouth. In Kingston. The Kingston Town Landing, which is the town wharf and public access to the Jones River, was rebuilt in 2013 by the Waterfront Committee. It has very much historical significance to Kingston residents. It was access to the Jones River when it was difficult, and commercial and recreational use of the waterways suffered when the shoreline was developed. Known as the Nook, it's the western shore of the Jones River. The next image you're going to see is an image of the Font School, originally called the Center Primary School. It's a functional antique restored to town service in 1976. That was named after Walter Fonts, a 92-year-old selectman, former teacher and school commissioner. And one other notable record I want to mention from the town of Kingston is the Surprise Hose House. Anyone driving down Route 27 in Kingston will notice on the left-hand side as you come towards Plymouth a little firehouse there. still part of the fire department. It was the town's first firehouse. Basically, when the development of the water system, they started a fire department, and volunteers manned these rigs. And the origin of the name is unknown. Many people suspect that when they showed up at a fire, it would be known as a surprise. It is a very great historical building at 235 Main Street. All of our notable records can be viewed on our website, PlymouthDeeds.org. We've done about 80 of them so far, some great history of Plymouth County. In closing, I want to thank Lorna Green Baker from my office and Christine Richards, who helped put this show together. David Antoine from PAC TV, who allows us to come and share our information across Plymouth County. I had help today from Erica Christensen, Ben Alexander, and Dan Rodriguez in helping me put this show together. This allows me to share valuable information about real estate activity in Plymouth County to the people in Plymouth County that like to know what's going on in the real estate market. So thank you for watching the show. Happy Columbus Day, happy Halloween, and we'll see you next month.